everyone, welcome back to another video. If you're new here, my name's Emma, and in today's video I'm going to be sharing with you guys the 25 books I want to read in 2025. I've never set one of these goals before in previous years, but I always see other people doing it and I'm like, I should also do that. And I love it because it kind of feels like an overarching TBR for the whole year instead of just my normal monthly TBRs. Some of these are new releases, some of these are rereads of some of my favorite books, and others of them are just like random. I don't really have a rhyme or reason, but without further ado, let's get into it. The first book I have on this list to read in 2025 is Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. This is the third book in the Empyrean series, aka the Fourth Wing series, and I read both Fourth Wing and Iron Flame right when they came out, and the second I finished Iron Flame, I was already ready for Onyx Storm, so this one was an obvious one to stick on this list for me. I feel like Fourth Wing took the internet by storm. Everyone was obsessed with it, as was I, but then when Iron Flame came out, I feel like there was a lot of controversy surrounding it because many people felt let down by the book, and honestly, I felt a little bit conflicted about that book as well. There were definitely some things I wasn't a huge fan of, but I love the world and the characters in those books so much that I still highly enjoyed Iron Flame, and I am so excited to get to Onyx Storm the day it comes out. Also on this list, I do want to do a reread of Fourth Wing and Iron Flame. I'm grouping that as like one thing on this list since they're in the same series. Like I just talked about, I've obviously already read those, but going into Onyx Storm, I really want to do a reread of both those books. I just think it would be fun to be back in that world leading up to the release of the new book, and also for just a refresher in my brain since it has been a while. And I think I might film like a vlog of me going through Fourth Wing and Iron Flame to prep for Onyx Storm. If anyone would be interested in seeing that, let me know in the comments below. Moving on, the next book on this list is another upcoming new release, and that is Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. If you know anything about me, you know how much I love Emily Henry's books and her writing. I would literally read her grocery list. That's how much I enjoy her books, and this is the new release, so obviously I had to stick it on this list. And I'm particularly excited about this one because just based on the synopsis of it, I feel like it's going to be very different from the other books she's written. I would normally classify Emily Henry's books as like women's fiction and romance kind of meshed together, but I get the vibe that this new one might have a little element of mystery in there as well. Another new release I'm adding to this list is Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez, and similarly to Emily Henry, Abby Jimenez is an auto-buy author for me. I've read basically all of her books. I'm obsessed with her, and this is maybe a hot take and a very bold statement, but I think I love Abby Jimenez even more than Emily Henry. She just does such a great job of balancing fun rom-com with emotional romance. I love all of her characters. I eat up every single book she's ever written, and I know that this new book will be no different. I am super excited for it. The next book I have on this list is the total opposite of a new release, and that is Pride and Prejudice. Now in 2024, I had made it a goal of mine to read more classics, and I did get through a few, and I want to continue that goal into 2025 just because I feel like it pushes me to get out of my comfort zone when it comes to reading. And when I think of classics, Pride and Prejudice is the first one that comes to mind, so I feel like the time has come that I need to actually pick it up. I have seen the movie adaptation, so I basically know what happens in it, but I feel like it's kind of a rite of passage when you're getting into classics to read Pride and Prejudice, so I'm gonna make it a goal to get to that one in 2025, and hopefully some other classics as well. Next up on my list, I have that I want to finish the Natural series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, and I've just put the series as a whole on here. One, because I've already started it and I'm just hoping to finish it, but two, I flew through the first book and I have a feeling I'm gonna fly through all the other books, so I could probably finish them all in like a week or two. The Naturals is a YA mystery that's very reminiscent of Criminal Minds, but with teenagers. I recently read the first book and absolutely loved it, so I'm gonna make it a priority to read that entire series in the year of 2025. Another series I have on this list is one that I want to start but not necessarily finish, and that is the Addicted / Calloway Sisters series. Honestly, I still don't fully understand the order you're supposed to read those in, so I'm definitely gonna have to do a little research before I jump into it. But this is one of those series that I just feel like I'm behind on. So many people love this series, and it was really popular and really hyped up a few years ago, and I am just one of those people that had never read it. There's really 3 reasons why I want to get to the series. One is what I just said, that I feel like everyone else has read it and I haven't, so I want to know what I'm missing out on. 2 is that I often hear that if you like Magnolia Parks and The Boys of Tommen, that you'll also like this series. And The Boys of Tommen was my top series of 2024, and Magnolia Parks was up there for me as well. So I have a feeling that I would really enjoy the Addicted series, and I've been looking for some new books to give me those same feelings that Boys of Tommen and Magnolia Parks gave me. So I'm hoping to get it from that series. And the 3rd reason is that my sister-in-law read the first book, maybe more than that, and she told me to read it. So obviously that makes me want to read it even more than I already did. I don't know that I will be able to get through that entire series in 2025. I'd love to say that I'd be able to, but from my understanding, there's kind of a lot of books in it. So I'm not really sure, but I at least want to read the first, maybe 2nd book to at least get started into that series in 2025. If you've read that series and you know the reading order I'm supposed to go in, please, please, please comment it below because I need to know. The next book on the list is one that I'm really intimidated by, but I feel like sticking it on this list is gonna push me to finally pick it up and actually read it, and that is Jade City by Fonda Lee. I think this is like a high stakes, very elaborate fantasy. I honestly don't know much about it, but I have owned that book for so long, and if you've watched some of my TBR videos in the past, you may know that that book is almost always on my TBR, and I find some excuse to not add it. I just always tell myself I'm not ready to dive into it, and I need to just stop making up excuses, and I need to just pick it up and see what I think. I feel like the main reason I've been putting it off is because I just hear how complex and complicated the world building and politics in those books are, and that scares me a little bit, but I'm gonna set aside my fears because it is a goal of mine to read that book in 2025. Next up, I'm hoping to get to the One Dark Window duology. I think there's actually another name for the duology, but I know the first book is called One Dark Window. This is another one that I've owned kind of for a while. I bought it around the time it was starting to gain a lot of hype on the internet, and I've always been super intrigued in reading it. I've heard great things about it. It sounds exactly like the type of book I like, but for whatever reason, I just haven't picked it up. So I feel like I definitely want to prioritize it and read it in 2025. I know that it's like a gothic fantasy, which I haven't read a lot of, but I feel like I would really enjoy. Another fantasy I have on the list is Heartless Hunter by Kristen Cicerelli. I actually got this as a book of the month book, and it didn't really pique my interest initially. Then I started seeing everyone raving about how good it was. I found out it was enemies to lovers, witch versus witch hunter, and a lot of people have been saying it's very Bridgerton-esque, which are all things I absolutely love. And I do know that the 2nd book is coming out in 2025, I believe. So I'm hoping that I can read Heartless Hunter right before the 2nd book comes out and then go into the 2nd book right when it gets released. Next up for 2025 is a reread of the Throne of Glass series, which is one of my favorite series ever. I do annual rereads of the ACOTAR series, but I have not yet done a reread of Throne of Glass. And I absolutely love that series. I think the reason I've just never done a reread is because it's such a long series, and I knew it would take up a lot of my time. But actually, at the time of me filming this, I have already started the reread on audiobook. And A, I love re-listening to it on audio, but B, the audiobook is obviously helping me fly through it, and hopefully I'm gonna be finishing that series potentially in January. The next one on my list is a series that a year or 2 ago I would have probably told you I would never read, but I think I finally want to get into it, and that's Zodiac Academy. I feel like everyone has total opposite opinions about this series. Either they love it, they're ride or die for it, absolutely obsessed, or they absolutely hate it. And honestly, at this point, I just want to know what I think for myself, because I have heard such mixed things about it. And honestly, the thing that like pushed me to add it to this list is that my mom recently read it and said she thought I should give it a try. So I at least want to start the first book, maybe get into the second one. I feel like there's no way I will be finishing that series in 2025 because I know it's an extremely long series, but I did want to add it to this list and at least read the first book, but who knows? Maybe I will end up reading the entire series. Next on this list is something I've been meaning to get to for a very long time, and that's the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy, which, if you don't know, is in the same universe as the Caraval trilogy, which I have already read. And I feel like I often hear people say that Once Upon a Broken Heart is even better than Caraval. So I don't really know why I haven't gotten into it yet. I own the books, I just haven't really had an excuse to pick them up. So I feel like putting them on this list gives me an excuse to pick them up. I'm just really excited to be back in the world of Caraval, and there's a particular character that I know is in those books who was also in Caraval, and I was obsessed with him in Caraval, and I have a feeling I'm gonna love him even more in Once Upon a Broken Heart. Another trilogy that I've owned for a while that I'm planning to get to in 2025 is the Scythe trilogy by Neil Shusterman. I believe this is like a dystopian sci-fi YA type of thing. I believe it's won awards and stuff like that. And honestly, I don't really hear people talking about this one very much, but these books have probably been on my shelves unread longer than any other unread books on my shelves. I picked them up at a secondhand bookstore a few years ago, and they've just been sitting there collecting dust. So I think 2025 is the year that I'm finally gonna crack them open and read them. Next up, we have a sci-fi book, and that is Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. I heard so many amazing things about this book, especially towards the end of 2024, and picked it up immediately. Was planning on reading it in like October and November, but honestly just got distracted with other books. So I definitely want to make sure I get to it in 2025. I haven't read a lot of sci-fi, but I'm hoping to branch out and read more sci-fis in 2025. And since I've heard that basically everyone loves this book, I figured it'd be a perfect one to jump into. I also know there's a TV adaptation. I don't know if it's a show or a movie, but I think it would be really fun to read the book and then go straight into the adaptation. The next one on my list is a book that I'm honestly shocked is coming out, but I'm so excited for, and that is Watch Me, which is in the Shatter Me series. A little background and lore on my experience with the Shatter Me series. I did not read very much in high school, but the original Shatter Me trilogy was one of the few things I did read, and I absolutely loved it. Then when I got back into reading in college, I decided to revisit the series, reread those first three, and then finished out the other books that were in it, and still love it, obsessed with it. Aaron Warner, that's all I have to say. Great series, always gonna be a top favorite of mine, but it's a completed series, so I never thought anything else would be coming out until I saw that they are releasing Watch Me. And I honestly haven't done that much digging onto what this book's gonna be about or what characters it's following. All I know is that it's in the world of Shatter Me, and I don't care who the characters are or what the plot line is. I'm just so excited that I'm gonna be able to be back in that world. As you can tell, I'm very much excited for that one, so I obviously had to stick it on this list. Next up is a series that I'm planning to start and hopefully finish in 2025, and that is the Chestnut Springs series by Elsie Silver. I've heard amazing things about this whole series, and it's cowboy romance. I mean, what's not to like? And my husband's family actually bought me the entire series for Christmas, so now that I own them, I feel like that's just my sign that I need to get to them very, very soon. The next one I have on my list is one that I probably won't get to until the end of 2025 because I feel like it's more of an atmospheric fall read, and that is Phantasma. I actually got it as a book of the month box pick, then I started hearing people raving about how good it was, but I do know it's kind of like a gothic, supernatural type of romance, so I feel like curling up on the couch with that book around Halloween would be absolutely perfect, so I am gonna get to it in 2025. I'm just saving it for October. Next up, we have a book that recently got released in a series that I absolutely love, and that is The Songbird and the Heart of Stone, which is a part of the Crowns of Nyaxia series, and this book is actually following the story of a side character from the first two books, and since book one, I have been wanting the background story and POV of this character, so I'm super excited to get to it. I actually don't really know why I didn't read it as soon as it came out. I think I was maybe just busy and potentially forgot that it came out, but that book is released right now. I just don't own it and haven't read it yet, but I am making it a priority to read it in 2025 because I'm super excited to be back in that world and get a new character's POV. Next up, we have Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. This is the newest book coming out in the world of the Hunger Games. This book is going to be following Haymitch, who was one of my favorite characters in the original trilogy, so I'm so excited that we're getting a prequel from his POV. I feel like I've silently been begging Suzanne Collins to write a story specifically about Haymitch since I was like 13 and read the books for the first time. It is also announced that there's going to be a movie coming out of this book, and I'm just so excited. I've been obsessed with the Hunger Games since like 4th, 5th grade, and the obsession never went away. Next up, we have The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. I've actually never read a Kristen Hanna book before, but everything I hear about her writing just sounds like something I would love. So in 2025, it was already kind of a goal of mine to get into her books. I just didn't know which one I wanted to start with, and I do feel like The Nightingale is the one I hear people talk about the most, and I hear that it makes everyone cry. So while I do hope to get to several of her books in 2025, I just put The Nightingale on my list because I am planning to start with that one. And then on a similar note to an author I've never read before, I have Beartown by Frederick Bachman. Like I said, I haven't read any of his books before, but I just hear great things and I've been really intrigued to read his books, and I feel like Beartown is one of the ones that's talked about the most, so I feel like that'd be a great place to start off when getting into his works. But if I love it, I will probably try to read some of his other books in 2025 as well. And then the last 3 on my list are all very popular fantasy romances. And looking back at this list, I feel like the majority of these books are fantasy romance, but that's because I love fantasy romance. It's my genre of choice. So whenever I was making this list, I feel like the ones that came to mind for being my priority books were books in that genre. So I have Quicksilver, which is one that has been getting so much hype on the internet. I know it's a really thick book, but from what I've heard about what it's about, I feel like I will eat it up and absolutely love it. And I also don't like feeling left out when I hear people absolutely raving about books, and I just want to be able to join the conversation. So I am gonna read that one so I can finally understand what all the hype is about. I also have Spark of the Everflame. I believe this is either a completed or almost completed series, and the main reason I have this on my list is because both my mom and my sister-in-law read it and really enjoyed it. So A, it's fantasy romance, so that obviously intrigues me, but knowing that both my mom and sister-in-law liked it intrigues me to read it even more. And then lastly, we have Throne of the Fallen by Carrie Maniscalco, and also the new one that came out in this spinoff. I honestly forget the title of it, but I want to read that too. If you don't know, these are both kind of like spin-off continuation books of the Kingdom of the Wicked trilogy, which I absolutely loved that trilogy. These are spin-offs about some of the other brothers of the main male character in the original trilogy, and I've been hearing a lot of people say that these spin-offs are even better than the original trilogy, which I have a hard time believing just because of how much I loved the OG books, but I do want to dive into them. I own Throne of the Fallen. I need to pick up a copy of whatever the other one's called, but I have a feeling I'm going to absolutely eat them up. And those are all the 25 books that I want to read in 2025. Comment below and let me know if you've read any of the books that I have on my list and what you thought of them. No spoilers though. And also comment below what books you're going to be prioritizing in the new year. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this in the future. And as always, I have my TikTok, Instagram, and Goodreads linked in the description below if you want to go follow me over there and check out the content I have on my other platforms. Or you can always just head over to this channel and watch the videos I currently have posted. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and that's all for now. Bye guys!